Brought to you by...
There are many films out there that begin with the simple premise of an entity or spirit so burdened with hate that the mere sight of them leaves you marked. We have seen this with the Tooth Fairy in Darkness Falls, Mary Shaw in Dead Silence, and now with a woman who lures children to their untimely demise. The Woman in Black is a gothic horror film directed by James Watkins and starring Daniel Radcliffe. The story follows Arthur Kipps, a young lawyer who is sent to a remote village to sort out the estate of the recently deceased Mrs. Drablow. Kipps, who is a widower still grieving the loss of his wife, arrives at the eerie Elle Marsh house, where he encounters the malevolent spirit of a woman dressed in black. As he uncovers the tragic history of the house and its former inhabitants, Kipps finds himself entangled in a web of terror, with the ghostly presence threatening both his life and the lives of the village children. The origins of this film adaptation trace back to Susan Hill's 1983 novel, which became a classic in the horror genre due to its chilling atmosphere and gothic themes. The novel was adapted into various formats, including a highly successful stage play that premiered in 1987, becoming one of the longest-running plays in West End history. This play significantly influenced the film adaptation, which sought to capture the eerie, tension-filled atmosphere that made the story so compelling. The journey to adapt the story into a feature film began in earnest in the mid-2000s, when Hammer Films, a legendary British production company known for its horror output, acquired the rights. Hammer, which had been dormant for decades, was in the process of reviving its brand, and The Woman in Black was one of the key projects intended to re-establish its legacy in the horror genre. The screenplay was written by Jane Goldman, known for her work on films like Stardust and Kick-Ass. Goldman's adaptation remained largely faithful to the source material, though she did make some changes to suit the cinematic medium. For example, the character of Arthur Kipp was given a more tragic backstory, deepening his motivations and making his emotional journey central to the film. Daniel Radcliffe was cast, marking one of his first major roles after the conclusion of the Harry Potter series. His casting was a deliberate choice, to distance himself from his iconic role as Harry Potter, and to establish himself as a versatile actor, capable of handling more mature and complex roles. Radcliffe's performance was pivotal in conveying the film's themes of grief and loss, and his involvement helped draw attention to the project. James Watkins, known for his work on the British horror film Eden Lake, was brought on board as the director. Watkins was chosen for his ability to create tension and horror through atmosphere rather than relying on gore and jump scares. His approach was to craft a film that paid homage to the Gothic horror tradition, while also appealing to modern audiences. Filming took place in various locations across England, with the exterior shots of the marsh filmed at Cotterstock Hall in Northamptonshire. The house itself became a central character in the film, with its isolated and decaying appearance amplifying the sense of dread. The interiors were meticulously designed to reflect the period, and the house's haunting history. The filmmakers also made use of practical effects and minimal CGI to maintain an authentic, old-school horror feel. The Woman in Black herself was portrayed with a combination of practical makeup effects and subtle visual enhancements, ensuring that her presence was both terrifying and believable. One of the most striking aspects of The Woman in Black is its oppressive atmosphere. The film is steeped in Gothic aesthetic, with the Marsh House serving as a perfect embodiment of haunted house, isolated from the mainland by treacherous marshes and accessible only via a narrow causeway. The house is shrouded in fog and decay. The cinematography, with its muted color palette and shadowy interiors, reinforces the sense of dread, making the house feel like a living, breathing entity that traps those who enter. The sound design also plays a crucial role in building tension. The film makes effective use of silence, punctuated by creaks, whispers, and sudden noises that jolt the viewers. At the heart of the film is the theme of grief, both for the protagonist, Arthur Kipps, and for our ghostly antagonist. Arthur's grief is the most apparent and human element in the film. He is a young widower, emotionally scarred by the death of his wife during childbirth. This loss has left him disconnected from the world, struggling to be a present father to his son and to fulfill his professional duties. His grief manifests in his morose demeanor, his inability to move on, and his willingness to take on the dangerous assignment of the Marsh House, perhaps as a way to distract himself from his pain. Jeanette Humphrey, our woman in black, is also defined by her grief. Her sorrow and rage are the defining forces behind her haunting. After her son was taken from her and subsequently died in an accident, Jeanette was consumed by anger and despair. In life, she was isolated and ostracized, and in death, her grief transformed her into a malevolent force that seeks to inflict suffering on others, particularly targeting the children of the village. This vengeful haunting can be seen as an externalization of her internal torment, her unresolved grief and anger made manifest in a destructive form. The concept of repression is central to the psychological underpinnings of this film. Both Arthur and the residents of the village are dealing with repressed emotions and memories. The villagers are aware of the woman in black's curse, but they choose to ignore and avoid discussing it, hoping that silence and denial will protect them. This collective repression is a coping mechanism, but it also allows the curse to continue unchecked, as the truth is buried and fear takes root in the collective unconscious. Arthur, too, is a character marked by repression. He buries his grief and tries to focus on his work, but his journey to the Marsh House forces him to confront the emotions he has been avoiding. The house itself, with its decaying interiors and hidden secrets, symbolizes the unconscious mind, a place where repressed memories and unresolved traumas lie dormant, just waiting to resurface. As Arthur uncovers the dark history of the Drablow family, he is also peeling back the layers of his own psyche, facing the horrors he has tried to keep at bay. The film can be seen as a study of a haunted mind, where the supernatural elements are extensions of internal psychological states. The woman in black is not just a ghost in the traditional sense. She represents the lingering effects of trauma and the way unresolved grief can fester and manifest in destructive ways. Her presence in the film can be interpreted as a symbol of how the past refuses to remain buried, and how unresolved emotions can haunt individuals, shaping their actions and their fate. Arthur's interactions with the woman in black and the events at the Marsh House can be seen as a psychological journey, where he is forced to confront his deepest fears and regrets. The house's isolation, surrounded by the treacherous marshes, can be linked to isolation of the human mind when trapped in a state of grief or desperation. The more time Arthur spends in the house, the more he is drawn into the horrors, paralleling how one can become consumed by their own dark thoughts and emotions if they are not properly addressed. The film also taps into more primal psychological fear, the fear of the unknown. The woman in black is a figure shrouded in mystery. Her motives and identity slowly are revealed as the story unfolds. This fear of the unknown is amplified by the film's use of shadows, fog, and sound, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty, where the boundaries between reality and the supernatural are blurred. Psychologically, this plays on the anxiety that comes with not knowing what lies ahead, a common human fear that can lead to irrational behavior and heightened paranoia. The ending of the film offers a complex psychological resolution. Arthur's death, alongside his son's, can be interpreted in many ways. On one hand, it could be seen as a form of release. Arthur is finally reunited with his wife, and his suffering is now over. From a psychological standpoint, this could represent the ultimate acceptance of his grief, a surrender to the overwhelming emotions that have plagued him throughout the film. On the other hand, the ending could be viewed as a tragic confirmation of the inescapability of trauma. Arthur's attempt to save his son fails, and despite his efforts, the woman in black's curse claims another victim. This could symbolize the idea that some traumas, once unleashed, cannot be contained or resolved through conventional means. The past, in this interpretation, is an inexorable force that shapes the present and future, often in destructive ways. The Woman in Black is a film that delves into the darkest corners of the human mind. It explores how grief and trauma, when left unresolved, can manifest in ways that are both terrifying and utterly tragic. The film's gothic horror elements serve as a metaphor for the internal struggles of its characters, making it not just a ghost story, but a profound exploration of the human psyche. Well, friends, that's going to be all for now. As always, I implore you to check out this film for yourself. Take my opinions for what they're worth, but more importantly, go formulate your own. I've placed the link down in the description on where you can get a copy of this film for your collection. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe for more content, and if you really want to help support this channel, come find us on Patreon. Every little bit helps this channel grow and gets us closer to that ultimate goal of being able to make these videos for you full time. Until next time, stay safe, beware the woman in black, and as always, thanks for watching.